Hi everyone, my name is Haley and I'd like to welcome you to week 2 of our Outdoor Explore program. This week we'll be here in Ruffin Canyon Open Space, learning all about native plants and pollinators. Ruffin Canyon is a beautiful place to explore here in San Diego, and it's full of all sorts of amazing plants and animals for us to learn about. Typically, when we're out in nature, we're on the lookout for animals, birds, or insects. But have you ever stopped to notice all of the amazing plants all around you? Without plants, animals wouldn't have the food or shelter they need in order to survive. Their lives are completely dependent on having a healthy ecosystem all around them. So let's go explore the trails and see what types of native plants we can find here in Ruffin Canyon. Native plants are plants that grow naturally in a specific area. They don't need anyone to take care of them because they rely on the temperature, rainfall, and amount of sunlight that is naturally available to them. For example, some plants like dry, hot temperatures of the desert, while others like the cold, wet winters further north. Here in Ruffin Canyon, the main habitat we see exploring the trails is called coastal sage scrub. Coastal sage scrub habitat is characterized by low-growing, aromatic plants that don't need a lot of water to survive. The word aromatic means strong-smelling, so you can think of all the sweet-smelling sages and prickly cactus when you think of a coastal sage scrub habitat. Chaparral is a habitat found a little further east or inland than where I am today, so the plants that live there have to be good at surviving in warm temperatures and without a lot of rainfall. Another habitat you may see around San Diego is grassland. Plants in grasslands tend to be dry and tall and have seeds that can spread easily across open spaces when the wind blows. And the last habitat we'll talk about today is one of my favorites, riparian. The word riparian is used to describe areas along a water source, such as a river or stream. The plants in riparian areas do require more water than those you'd find in the other habitats. And while most of Ruffin Canyon is made up of the coastal sage scrub habitat, if you make it down to the bottom section of the canyon, you can explore some of the riparian areas. Each habitat is unique in its own way, and actually one habitat, the coastal sage scrub, is so unique it's considered a threatened habitat here in California. That means only about 10 to 15% of this habitat still remains along our coast. One reason for this is that fires and development have heavily impacted this fragile habitat. Some people look at this dry habitat during the summers and think that the plants are dead and not very pretty. But what they don't understand is that many of these plants go dormant or they dry up due to the lack of rain and the heat of summer. Only then do they bloom beautifully again after the fall and winter rains. Let's take a minute to look at just a few of the native plants we have here in our coastal Southern California region. This one is lemonade berry, and it's easily identifiable by its dark red berries. Prickly pear cactus might be familiar to you. It has really beautiful flowers in the spring, but look out for those sharp spines. White sage is one of those aromatic plants. If you take your fingers and gently rub the leaves, you'll notice that they have a pretty strong, minty smell. Black sage is in the same family as white sage. That means that it also has a somewhat minty smell, it's just a little bit different. This plant is called California buckwheat. For most of the year, its seeds are a dull, dark red, but during the spring it has these beautiful pink and white flowers. This plant is called bladderpod. It has a foul, musky smell that actually works to keep a lot of insects away from it. All of these plants depend on pollinators to help them reproduce. That is, to make new seeds that grow in new areas. Actually, about 75% of the food that we eat relies on pollinators to help it grow. Animals like bees, butterflies, and birds all help spread pollen from plant to plant so new plants can grow. In return, these plants provide food and shelter for the animals. Sadly, some of our pollinators, like birds, are losing their native habitats. But by creating native plant gardens, we can help create a healthy space for wildlife to live. Let's see how we can help pollinators, like birds, by creating native gardens. realize how important native plants are, let's do an activity to learn about some of the species in our region. Each of you is going to get a native plant coloring page. You'll also receive an information sheet to teach you a little bit more about your plant. And you'll be seeing a picture of exactly what it looks like in real life. So go ahead and pause the video on the screen with all of your different plant pictures, and then you can spend some time coloring them in with colored pencils or crayons, replicating the colors from real life onto your sheet. If you finish early, you can talk with a friend or neighbor to learn more about their plant. And once you've completed this activity, we'll be learning more about this week's lab. I hope you enjoyed learning about native plants through your coloring page activity. In the next portion of the video, I'll be walking you through a quick preview of how to create wildflower seed balls, which you'll be doing soon for your lab. This super fun activity is a great way to distribute wildflower seeds without them getting eaten by birds or washed away with the rains. We combine soil, clay, and seeds, mush them all together, and then we'll be placing them on the ground around your school or your home for wildflowers to grow. Because this activity can get a little bit messy and it has more steps and materials than last week, I'm going to do a quick demo so you and your teachers have a better idea of what to expect during your lab. The materials you'll have for this week's activity include a Ziploc baggie with some clay and soil in it, a pipette that you'll use to help add water, and a bowl for storing your seed balls once you're all done. You're also going to want to have a cup filled up about halfway with water. As you can see, mine's not quite ready yet, but you'll fill yours up maybe halfway or 3/4. Your teacher's also going to have a bag full of wildflower seeds. This is what we're going to be using to actually create our seed balls today. So the first thing that we'll be doing is grabbing our Ziploc baggie. Inside of this bag, there's actually two different things. You'll notice that there's a dark colored potting soil kind of down at the bottom, and then a lighter colored clay up on the top. That clay is what helps our seed balls stick together, and without this, they would just crumble apart. So the first thing that we're gonna do is mix all of the clay and soil together. A super important thing to remember is to always check that the top of your Ziploc bag is closed before you do any mixing. So we'll zip up our bag and start shaking up our soil. So now that we've mixed our bag all together, any idea what we should do to get the soil to stick together? We're gonna add water. Now if we add a bunch of water all at once, we're gonna create a huge muddy mess. So this is where our pipettes come in. A pipette is a super fun science tool where we can add small amounts of water really carefully. If you've never used a pipette before, don't worry, we'll go over exactly how to use them together during our lab. But basically, I'm going to take my water, use my pipette, and add a few drops at a time into the bag. So what I'm going for here is that I want the soil to be the consistency of Play-Doh, meaning that it's going to stick together. So I'll probably have to add a couple drops of water, then really mix my bag up, add some more water, mix the bag up, and do that a couple of times before I get it right. So once I feel like it's really sticking together, I'll add the most important part, the wildflower seeds. Your teacher is going to help you with this. They'll be giving you 2 small pinches of seeds. Now, the reason we don't want to dump a ton of seeds in at once is because each seed needs some space, soil, and water of its own. So if we add too many, they might not grow as well. So your teacher's going to come around and put 2 pinches directly into your bag. And once they've done that, go ahead and give your bag one last really good mix, getting all of those seeds mixed in with the dirt and water. Okay, so here comes the fun part. We'll be opening up our bags and getting our hands dirty to create our seed balls. So you'll open your bag and take out a chunk of soil. Instead of just leaving it as a chunk, we're gonna start rolling it into a ball. The size of the ball should be big enough that it fits into the circle of your hand if you make an OK symbol. If for some reason your soil isn't sticking together, that just means it's too dry and you should add a little bit more water. But if it's sticking together like mine is, just roll it up and then check that it fits within your OK symbol. Once you've completed your first one and it looks to be about a good size, you're going to set it inside of your bowl to dry, and you'll just keep going at your own pace until you've used up all of the soil inside of your bag. So when it's all done, you should be able to make at least 3 or 4 seed balls, and you'll want to set them inside of your bowl because they're going to need some time to dry. It's a good idea in the meantime to actually write your name on the bottom of your bowl, just in case you need to move them somewhere as they dry for a few days around your classroom. So that's just a quick preview of what to expect this week from your lab. Your San Diego Audubon educator will go over a lot more instructions with you, but it's always nice to have a good idea of exactly what to expect. Like you guys saw for this lab, your hands are going to get a little bit messy, so just be sure to roll up your sleeves and know you're just going to have to give your hands a good wash when we're all done. I hope you enjoyed exploring Ruffin Canyon with me today and learning all about native plants and pollinators. We'll be seeing you again soon to create your very own wildflower seed balls.